Hello everybody, Gary here, and welcome to Lost Treasure Stories. This week's video was a little bit delayed because here in Tampa Bay we're watching Hurricane Milton come to us, so we've been a little bit distracted here preparing for that and getting ready for that. And I want to let you know that, we don't know exactly where the storm's going to make landfall, but there could be a delay in the next video getting posted if we lose power, internet, that type of thing. So don't worry, we'll be back. We just don't know when. There's going to be millions of people lose power here in Florida, in the Tampa Bay area where we're at. So just hang in there. We will be back if we get delayed. And if you're a new visitor to Lost Treasure Stories YouTube channel, welcome. If you like stories of lost treasure, this is definitely the place you want to be. I have hundreds and hundreds of lost treasure stories on file for my private research of over 45 years. A lot of these stories that you're going to hear on our channel here, you've never heard of or seen them before because nobody's heard of them for, 75 to 150 years. And if you like these kind of stories, you're definitely going to want to go ahead and take a couple seconds now to go ahead and subscribe. We have stories in every state in the U.S., so, you don't want to miss an episode. It just could be from the area you live in. And as a new subscriber, and as a gift from me to you, if you're new here to the channel, go ahead and make a comment of what county and state you live in, and I'll post a story just for you as close to where you live as possible, just as a gift from me to you. And now, let's get on to the Lost Treasure Stories.
This lost treasure story is from a newspaper article May 20th, 1913, and it reads, $300,000 in gold lies buried on the old Herling Ranch near Half Moon Bay, according to information given to Joseph Nash, San Mateo County Clerk, in a letter received from an attorney of Cleveland, Ohio. Attorney Solomon Hurwitz, writing for Alter Kuttner, nephew of Joseph Herling, who died in the Stockton Insane Asylum in 1873, wrote for information concerning the present title to the ranch. The attorney declared that if the location and ownership of the land were verified, that he and Kuttner would hunt for the buried treasure. Herling and his daughter, Josephine, who is confined in the Agnew State Hospital for the Insane, and who now holds title to the Half Moon Bay Ranch, came to California from Austria more than 40 years ago. The Herlings were at one time a wealthy and distinguished family in Austria. They owned a great deal of real estate. They lived, however, in great retirement and mystery. They left Austria suddenly and under the same mysterious circumstances. Joseph Herling sold all of his property and carried with him an immense sum of gold. He settled in old Spanish Town, which is now known as Half Moon Bay. Herling became insane and killed Klaus Clerk, a neighbor. He was sent to Stockton, where he died a year later. A few years after this, the daughter developed the same mental trouble, and she has been in the hospital ever since. Kuttner, through searching the family papers and deductions from facts which he had not revealed, has become convinced that Herling buried his fortune on the old ranch. The ranch has been idle for 40 years. Kuttner has plans and maps to carry on his search. That's the end of the newspaper article, but as a side note to this story, nothing was ever reported found at this location.
Okay, that's the end of our first lost treasure story in this week's episode. Our next story is coming up right now.
Near Noctor, Kentucky, there is a flat area of about 80 acres called Round Bottom. The area has almost been turned into an island due to being almost completely surrounded by Quicksand Creek. A man by the last name of Back was a farmer in the 1800s and was the owner of the property. One of Back's sons confirmed that his dad had buried $5,000 in gold on the property. Not long before he died, his family asked him where the money was buried, but because he had recently suffered a stroke, he could no longer speak or walk. The best that he could do to help his family recover the hoard was to gesture towards a line of cedar trees behind the house. Mr. Back soon died, and his family searched long and hard for the gold coins, which have now increased in value immensely, but they were unsuccessful in finding anything. When the walkway on the place was being rebuilt, $500 in silver that Mr. Back's wife had buried under it was found, but Mr. Back's hoard of lost treasure was never found. This story is from a newspaper July 28, 1906 about a lost treasure story near the town of Netherlands, Colorado. The article as it appeared said, "Gold coin believed to be buried on a ranch or on White Cloud Mountain is causing feverish excitement in the little town of Netherlands, a few miles west of Boulder. At least 50 persons armed with picks and shovels have been searching the locality where the riches are supposed to be hidden. So far the hunt has been fruitless, but it will not be abandoned." The story reads like the crudest fiction, but it is absolutely true, as residents of the town will admit. Some 7 years ago, Frank Fisher, a prosperous ranchman on the farm 25 miles west of Boulder, on North Boulder Creek, was taken to the Boulder Sanatorium suffering with an ailment that they gave him no hope of recovery. Realizing that he had not long to live, he took into his confidence a fellow patient, that he had treasure buried on his ranch, and in case of his death, to search for it and dispose of it as directed. An idea struck him, however, and he returned to the sanitarium, where he informed Fisher that the latter had better personally find the gold, else it probably never would be uncovered. A spring wagon was provided and Fisher was taken to the ranch and conveyed on a stretcher to the house. Although extremely feeble, he managed to point out the particular log with which, upon removal, disclosed a stovepipe containing $4,000 in gold coin. He was then conveyed to the field, where he likewise designated the rock pile under which $800 more in gold was found. This money was afterward distributed among Fisher's relatives, as the old man died within a short time after this successful search. But before passing away he asserted that Frank DeLand, who had lived on the ranch adjoining his own on the northwest, also had planted gold about the premises, and that this likewise could be found. DeLandon, 15 years ago, went back to Wisconsin to sell an estate. He was killed by his brother, who had occupied the ranch with him, and was killed in a mine a few weeks ago, before Frank went east. Peter said he believed the money was buried in a cliff on White Cloud Mountain near the DeLand Ranch. Frank DeLand had no bank account, and his brother recollected that when he once asked him for a loan of $1,000, Frank went to the hill and got back the coin. However, Peter died, followed a few years later by his brother Frank, and when Fisher, the adjoining ranchman, found himself on the verge of death, he gave away his own secret and as much as he could of DeLand's. The method of secreting the gold in the rock is as follows. A hole was drilled into the solid rock quite deeply, and a long iron spoon with a wide flare at the bottom was inserted. The coin was then dropped into the hole, and as what money was required, the spoon was hoisted up, and as much money as desired was removed from the top of the pile, and then the spoon would be, with the remaining cash, once again lowered into place. Only by the closest scrutiny could this hiding place be discovered. All this description was given by Fisher, who had obtained fragments of it during the preceding year. Fisher passed away soon after relating the story. The DeLand Ranch has now been leased to M.B. Ray, who with many others, has for a long time been examining the hills in an attempt to locate the secret recess. The people of Netherlands are periodically at fever excitement, and at times a dozen men have been prowling over the rocks. A side note to this lost treasure story is, this lost cache of gold, as of October 1, 2024, has never been reported found and is quite possibly still on the old DeLand Ranch.
This lost treasure story appeared in this January 28, 1909 newspaper article. Here's the reading. Mr. Carter, of Lumberton, has in his possession a ring which is prized very highly as an heirloom. It belonged to his great-grandfather, General Nathaniel Richardson, a general in the Revolutionary War, and that the ring is now in the possession of the family, is due to an old black woman. General Richardson lived near Charleston, South Carolina, and was a man of large possessions. He was killed during the 5th year of the war by Tories as he was leaving his home with a large sum of money to pay off his garrison. He was shot from his horse, just as he was leaving his gate. When he fell, an old black woman ran from the rear of the house and secured from his person the ring. That she was able to do this being due to the fact that the Tories, who shot General Richardson, waited a considerable length of time before coming from undercover. On the inside of the ring, under the top, on which was originally a silver urn in which was a lock of hair, is General Richardson's name and the date August 3, 1776. On the outside, on one side is plainly inscribed Lysera, and on the other side, JLA. On the other side is another word or words, but at that point the ring is too worn smooth to decipher. General Richardson was the grandfather of Mrs. R. M. Carter, of Maxton. He was reputed to be worth $200,000 to $300,000, and steps are being taken to recover some of the land he owned in Sumner County, South Carolina. At the time of his death he had a considerable sum of money, about $50,000. It is supposed that it is buried in a swamp near his home, but he died before he was able to tell where the money was. All the information that was possible to obtain was that the money was buried under a drooping tree in a swamp, and the money has never been found.
This lost treasure, found, story is from a newspaper article December 6, 1889 out of Georgia. The article reads, "There lived a substantial old farmer by the name of Hugh Bryant, in Monticello County, upon the waters of Scarecrow Creek, who by labor and economy had accumulated considerable property. He kept a part of his money in gold buried in the ground during the war. Some of the scouts hanged the old man to make him give up his hidden treasure, but he refused to do so. They left vitality enough in the old man to survive the hanging. He died soon after the war, and his estate was administered, but the heirs never found the hidden treasure until last Saturday. A party was plowing and digging. They unearthed $3,176 in gold. As a side note to this story, it's not known if that was all the treasure buried on this farm, or if there could be more somewhere on the property."
Hold on, everybody. Stop the presses. There's a lot of holes in this story that I just want to talk to you about. Now, the story might be true, and they just got a lot of the facts wrong, so I want to tell you about what I found out here. And if you were the person, this was a request for a story in this area. So if you were the person that requested a story, and after you get to check it out here, if none of it's right, none of it's true, you can't find any more information, just let me know in a comment and I'll post another story for you. But to start with, this story came out of Savannah, Georgia, a newspaper. So you'd think they'd know that there's no such thing as Monticello County, Georgia. That never existed. There is a town of Monticello. The town of Monticello is in Jasper County, Georgia, okay? There's also no such thing as Scarecrow Creek. There is a creek called Scarecorn Creek near Monticello in Jasper County. So I'm sure this is the area they're talking about. But I don't know, since they got all these facts wrong, I don't know if this story is even true or if some newspaper editor made up a little filler story off the top of his head. They would do that sometimes if they needed filler. They'd just make a story up. So what you're going to have to do, I haven't researched this story all the way through. I've got too many stories. Sometimes I just have the story and I just file it away and I just never researched any further. But you're going to want to get a hold of the Jasper County Historical Society or the Jasper County, Georgia Clerk of Court and see if you can see if they've got any information on a Hugh Bryant that lived along Scarecorn Creek in Jasper County, Georgia. One thing you're going to want to know, Georgia never used land plat maps to show where people lived. If you have a land plat map, I can go in and see right where a person's house was. But Georgia used, instead of plat maps, Georgia used land deeds. Okay, so you're going to want to go to there, see if there was a man by the name of Hugh Bryant that had a land deed for property ownership along Scarecorn Creek in Jasper County, Georgia. Just leave a comment below if you can't find any more information, and I'll post a new story for you. Okay, folks, Treasure hunting is fun, right? You never know what you're going to find. Sometimes you find a story that's just not there. And we'll see you on the next episode of Lost Treasure Stories.